What up, what up, what up, what up, what up, premium members? Paul Hickey here with nooffseason.com and the Sports Card Strategy Show. Welcome to the Overflow Show. This is for nooffseason.com premium members, and we are excited to answer your questions. So you got a lot of great questions into us over the last week, and we are back with the Overflow Show. The purpose of this show is to strictly answer premium member questions. So if you're a premium member at nooffseason.com, you get your question answered on the Overflow Show every week. And so let's get right into it. First up today is Jerry Wise. Jerry asks, hey, everyone, excited that I signed up as a premium member a couple weeks ago and have been following the show for a few months now. I was in the hobby 20 years ago. Kids, marriage, work all happened, and now I returned this year. I am making my own plays and taking the advice of your show, as well as throughout the last few months buying on eBay, other shows. I think he means, card shows. Yeah. eBay, card shows, and Instagram. I'm curious if there is a specific way to go about sales in August for the NFL, for example. Great question. Training camp, preseason, question mark. Is it dependent on the player and the daily review of the market? Great questions. Also, wondering when I have multiple of the same player, for example, Sky Moore, I have about 15 autos. Nice. If he has a phenomenal first couple of weeks, would you put them all on sale or maybe space them out? Hope this question makes sense and appreciate any info. All right. We're going to answer this. Myself, Chad, and Kendall, and Chase Krim from Texas Roadshow Shop, Texas Roadshow Cards, are all queued up to answer this question. So Chad, the sports card doctor, Dr. Crack, Chad Gill's going to take it away first. Chad, what do you think about Jerry's question here?
Jerry, thanks for the question. These are some good questions that you've got here. So as far as the NFL in August when you sell the cards, I typically post my NFL cards the last week of July. I'll post them all on eBay with Buy It Nows. And then I post them a little bit higher because they generally go up a little bit from now until early August. Once spring training hits and they start having games, if a player pops off in a spring training game, their cards tend to get hot. But I price everything on a Buy It Now, usually right the week of the Nationals, so the last week of July, and then typically try and get them all sold by the start of the NFL season. There is another method you could do. You could hold a specific player until later in the season if you think they're going to get off to a hot start, or if they're going to make the playoffs, holding them to the end of the year. Certainly a little bit more risky, could be a little bit more lucrative if the team makes it to the playoffs or Super Bowl, or they do something terrific, All-Pro or something of that nature. I generally try and buy my football cards in April and May, get them sent off for grading, get them back in June, early July, get them posted the end of July, and try and make sure that they're sold by the early September when the games start. That's my philosophy, and it's worked out well over the years. In terms of if you have multiple cards, what I like to do with multiple cards is I will post them one at a time. I don't want to flood the market with a bunch of the same card. So, for example, on the plays that we've been talking about, most recently I just finished a Jordan Walker play, and I had 10 PSA 9s. I listed them one at a time, and I made sure that I priced them at a point where they would sell relatively quickly. Each one took about a day or two to sell, so it took me about 3 weeks to go through all of them. But as soon as one sold, I would hit relist similar item. I would take pictures of the new one so that the certification number changed in case somebody was double checking the cert number, and then I sold them that way. And it seems to work out very well that way, so that some people list all 8 or 9 or 10 cards at the same time. I personally like to do it one at a time. Hope this helps. Thanks for the questions. Thanks for following, and keep the questions coming. Good luck.
Thanks, Chad. Great answer. So obviously Chad said spring training. He meant training camp and the preseason. Let's let Kendall answer next, and then Chase and I will chime in as well. Jerry, you got loaded up with some great answers here, and you had some great questions. So Kendall, what do you have to say about Jerry's questions here?
Jerry, what's up, man? We're super glad that you're back in the hobby after 20 years of being away. Welcome back. It has almost never been this healthy. We are seeing the internet and eBay and all of these groups and social media be really, really good for the hobby, and especially, honestly, COVID was good for the hobby. COVID was bad for most things, but in this particular incident, COVID spiked the hobby's interest and got what we now have as an investable market. There's multiple millions of dollars in trades every day in terms of cards, and Fanatics is only bringing more attention to that. So welcome back. We're glad you're back, and you will be here when we win. So in terms of NFL off season or preseason slash start of season selling, what I would recommend is if you have top tier profile players, so the elite quarterbacks, I would recommend selling them around week 1 to week 5 based on their first big win. So when they first put up 300 to 400 yards with multiple touchdowns and no interceptions, that's when I would sell. In terms of other positions, I would sell them in preseason when they have a good debut in preseason. Maybe if they're a first stringer, maybe the game 3 or 4 when they start really coming into their own and you can kind of dream up on them. Create the media cycle. Sometimes when they actually hit the profile is not when the investable cycle hits, because if enough people are expecting that profile to hit, then you move it up a little bit because those people are trying to find cards that are investable, and that actually is when the peak is. So it's kind of like a nebulous thing. You kind of have to be really smart with it, but in your example of Sky Moore, if you have 15 autos for a guy that is positionally like Sky Moore, I would list them during camp for more than you would expect. And we talk about having a Dutch auction, lowering $5 every now and then. But what I would positionally do for him is I would sell maybe 3 or 4 of them in a bundle and try to get a good portion of them gone, like right during the preseason, and then hold 3 or 4 of them after you've already gained your most of your money back. Hang out for that 150-yard game, maybe a couple touchdowns, and then sell them then. Thanks, Jerry. We're glad you're back, and welcome to No Off Season, and love your questions. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Kendall. That was great stuff. Really appreciate that. So, Jerry, a lot to think about so far in terms of the answers, and I'm going to bring it home for you here right after Chase. Chase, what are you cooking up over there at Texas Roadshow Cards? How you doing, man?
Hey everybody, Sports Card Strategy Show, the Overflow Show. Welcoming everyone to all the premium subscribers out there. I'm Chase from Texas Roadshow. I'm gonna be here answering some questions for Paul every now and then. Right now, I'm gonna answer this question from Jerry Wise. Jerry Wise says, "I'm curious if there's a specific way to go about sales in August for the NFL, for example, training camp preseason. Is it dependent on the player and daily review of the market? Also, wondering when I have multiple of the same player." All right, so that's a different question. So we'll answer this first question first. Is there a specific way to go about sales in August for NFL? I do think it's dependent on the player. But basically, I would sell on just like the first like bit of hype that person has, whether that's in a preseason game or it's in training camp. Basically, like just start searching like news articles for whoever's cards you have. Once you see that there is like a positive like thing that comes out about that person, that's when I would start listing. So if someone has like an insane preseason game, I would go ahead and list. Again, you're kind of fighting against like for instance, so your next question is about Sky Moore. So for Sky Moore, you're kind of fighting against like the hype of the new guys, right? So the hype around new guys are slowly gonna start fading and fading. So it's kind of like an uphill battle. So to kind of counteract that, any positive news that comes out about them, I would be ready to sell. Now, if it's someone you think can make like a playoff push, then that's different. You can sell in the preseason, but there's usually a dip in the season that you can buy and then sell at the postseason. So hopefully I answered that question well for you. Basically, overall, just any positive news that comes out about the card or the player whose card you have, I would sell on that news. All right, next part of the question is also wondering when I have multiple of the same player, i.e. Sky Moore, I have about 15 autos. If he has a phenomenal first couple weeks, would you put them all on sale or maybe space them out? So that's a really interesting question. So I would go ahead and start listing those as soon as August starts. Kansas City kind of has a really crowded wide receiver room at the moment, and Travis Kelce is going to be the primary target. So you have Kadarius Toney there, you have Sky Moore, I believe Valdez Scantling's still there, and they also just drafted a rookie. So I would kind of sell off of the preseason hype, but if there's anything for Sky Moore, like if he pops off a game, I wouldn't. I don't think it's a bad thing to just list all of them. I think you sell off the hype. Just because it's a crowded room, so he's probably not going to get all the targets, so his stats aren't going to be that great. But he's going to have the eyes on him, just from all the eyes that are going to be in Mahomes. So anything, say even in the preseason he has a good game, I would sell off all of them off that hype, just because I'd take the hype and I don't have to worry about Kadarius Toney getting more targets than him, Valdez Scantling getting targets than him, the rookie, his last name's Rice, I think. Or about him getting targets. Kelsey's already gonna get his, so it's kind of an uphill battle again. So I would just I'd list all your Sky Moores off of a good performance, but I would already start listing them in August. And then if he does have a good performance, I'd list all of them. So hopefully that answers your question. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for asking your questions to the Premium Show. Hope you enjoy. Bye.
Thanks, Chase. Great work, man. So, Jerry, here's what I would say. I think the guys did a great job answering your question. I'm going to try to bring it home for you because there's a lot to kind of synthesize there. So, I think that the first part, there's no one way to sell cards in August, but there are different strategies and the guys sort of hit on them. Andy Kaysen from Football Card Quest, Chad, who you just heard from, and Kendall, for the most part, are proponents of buy it now or best offer and having them listed. Like Chad's listing his cards right after the National or during the National. He's listing his football cards, but he's doing it in a buy it now or best offer format where I would venture to guess that these people like Andy and Chad, they're almost doubling the price off of what the card would sell for now, or the, I guess, recent comps or created comps. And so you could list all of your football cards, including your big QBs and your skill position players at the end of July, early August, leading into the preseason. The thought process there is that there's so much hype around the start of the NFL season, and the NFL news starts to dominate the sports news cycle everywhere. And so you've got the Women's World Cup this year, which is going to get a little bit of attention. There's not that much attention that goes to baseball in August, and there's zero attention that goes to basketball. And there's probably going to be zero attention going to like F1. So, and then you've got like the men's soccer is in a lull as well. So it's really NFL hot season for August. And that's why Andy Kaysen and Carter, who's his co-host at the Football Card Quest, and myself, the three of us all say, sell all of your football cards in August, like literally all of them, even if it's like a big QB, because the other side to the NFL thing is injuries. So even if you've got like Hurts, Burrow, Tua, some of the bigger named, like more hyped up quarterbacks, that's why you hear like Kendall and Chad say stuff like, yes, sell them after their biggest performance in September. So I would break it down like this. Skill position players, I would sell during the preseason. Even if you have like Justin Jefferson, even if you have like Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, guys that are like tried and true running backs, wide receivers, I would still sell them all in August, because the risk of them getting injured in August is slim to none, because they're their team's top guys. So they're not going to get like overworked in the preseason. But you do have somebody, I mean, if you've ever played fantasy football, you know there's always a big name player that tears their ACL that's out for the season in August. And so I don't want that to happen to the guy that you're holding cards for. So that's why I say all skill position players sell in August. And I like the auction format. So those other guys do buy it now. The reason I like auction is because you could take a guy like I know some people on our team like super sleepers like Kenny Gainwell, John Mechie, Kadarius Toney. You've got Sky Moore. He falls into that category. So a lot of those super sleepers, what I think it's hard to tell like what their actual value is going to be. And so with an auction, I would definitely like follow the box scores in the preseason, follow what's happening on the big social media accounts for the NFL in the preseason, in the not only the preseason but training camp. And anytime there's any kind of like big touchdown catch made in practice, even like if Sky Moore like hits social media with like this amazing touchdown catch in practice from Patrick Mahomes, even that will spike his card value to the point where if you've got 15 of them, I'd list like at least one. And then if he pops off for a big preseason game, for sure, list another one. In an auction, like just in an auction. And I would set the minimum bid in the auction to be like what you paid for the card. And then that way, everything else is house money from that point. If you don't get a bid, you keep the card. If you do get a bid, you at least get your money back, and you're hopefully get multiple bids if you list it during a decent hype cycle for that person. But to Chase's point, like anything at all can be a hype cycle for an individual guy like a Sky Moore. It could be literally anything that gets him in the news in any kind of positive way can be a great point to sell his card for a profit. Waiting until he does something spectacular in the regular season can be super risky, not only with the crowded WR room, like he said, but also with the risk of injury. So the upside there, obviously, with Sky Moore is like he plays with Patrick Mahomes, and I'm not saying that he can't end up being the number one wide receiver and have a breakout year, but I think that the risk outweighs the reward on Sky Moore, and that's why I would like a safe play is just to list them all during the NFL preseason, and just the sheer hype of football season carries Sky Moore into hopefully helping you profit. What I would highly encourage you to do is not spend too much money on super sleepers like that. That was kind of a learning experience that I had a couple years ago. I bought a lot of like Rashad Bateman, Kenny Gainwell, Kadarius Toney. I bought a lot of Amon-Ra St. Brown. And while I was able to sell those cards for maybe like a 10% profit or break even on them, I tied up so much money in those kinds of lower end cards, even though they were autos, that I couldn't make better plays. Like if in hindsight, I would have put all the money that I put into sleepers like those guys into, I mean, I even bought like Jalen Reagor cards, like because they were super cheap. And I'm like, oh, Jalen Reagor, like first round pick, no. If I would have put them all into a Burrow card or a Herbert card or a Hertz card or something, like just one Burrow card would have paid off huge. So now on your quarterbacks, it depends. That definitely depends on the player. So if you're talking about like Mahomes, Dak, Burrow, Herbert, Tua, who else am I missing here? There's tons more. Josh Allen. If you're holding like a top tier hobby darling quarterback that already it's liquid that and they sell very, very well. Lamar Jackson is another one. Selling them in August probably isn't going to do anything for you. I think that's where you need to list to sell immediately upon, like Lefty said, their first big game of the season. Because like Burrow's not going to get a hype spike really in August. I mean, he might, but not as much as he would get in September. Now, I will say this. Do not wait past September to sell these guys, though, even like your Dax and guys that you might think could go to the Super Bowl. Because the reason why is because even if, like, let's say you're 100% convinced that, I'm just going to throw out a random name here. Just stay with me. Let's say you're 100% convinced that Dak Prescott is going to win the Super Bowl and you're willing to put all your money and your life on it. Don't even hold his card past September. Here's why. You're going to be able to sell for a profit in September off of his first big games and the hype spike of the NFL season. Even just selling during his first primetime game of the year. Everyone's card prices dip in end of November and December. You will be able to buy back into the Dak market in December, or the whoever market, the Russell Wilson market, the Josh Allen market, the Derek Carr market, whatever it is, whoever it is, whatever QB you want to buy back into, even the Joe Burrow market. Their cards all dip in December during the holidays. So you're going to be able to make profit in September, keep that money, save up more money, buy more of their cards in December. Then you know more about them also. Like you have an idea of what their potential playoff road to the Super Bowl is going to look like. Then you sell them during February, March. There's always the trend line for NFL goes up in February, March, April towards the draft. It goes down in November, December. So hopefully that helps. All right, we're going to move on to, and Jerry, again, thank you so much for the question and for being a premium member. We're going to move on to Scott Goldsmith. He says, good morning, Paul and the Sports Card Strategy team. It's Wednesday morning and I'm driving to work listening to the most recent pod. When you told your story about PSA, I got crushed by some PSA grades after cracking some slabs for some other grading companies. I'm surprised that none of you even mentioned the fact that PSA is showing significant inconsistencies with their grading based on your experience. Does the team feel that PSA at this point is just so inconsistent it's almost a sham? Do you all feel that maybe some of the other companies like SGC are more accurate and consistent? While I understand that PSA commands a better price in the market, do you think we may see a shift at some point either to one of these companies or to the new electronic grading? Scott, I'm going to let Chad take the first stab at answering your question. Chad, what do you think?
Hey, Scott, thanks for watching. Thanks for the question. It's a question that comes up a lot when you're on the Facebook sites or the forums for all the different grading companies. And do I think that PSA is a sham? No, I do not. I still think that PSA is the top grading company, not just because the fact that their cards do sell for more. I do legitimately think that they are the best company for grading. What happened with Paul can happen with anybody. However, it's a very small percent of stuff that happens. When you crack open cards, things can happen. If Paul recracked them again, maybe he'd see that when the cards got a lower grade, maybe it was because there was a dinged corner or a scratch or something from cracking open the slab a second time that you might not have noticed when he sent it in. There's a lot of different reasons as to why those grades could have come back lower. Or he could crack them out and send them in again. But as far as the inconsistencies go, every grading company has them. But it's simple math because PSA does 1 million cards a month, and the other BGSs, SGCs, HGAs, CSGs, they all do maybe around 100,000 cards a month. So if PSA was 98% accurate, that would mean that there's 20,000 cards a month that people like Paul are going to feel like they maybe didn't get the right grade on. But 98% of them, 980,000 cards, are going to be done perfectly. Whereas on the flip side, if you're SGC of the world and SGC does 100,000 cards in a month and they do 98% accurate, they're only going to have 2,000 cards or 2,000 people compared to 20,000. So it's on a much smaller scale. So I believe all of the companies do a very good job with grading. to wrap up the answer here, don't mean to get long-winded. I think all the companies do a nice job with grading. I think they all have a little bit of inconsistencies. That's why there's AI is starting to take more and more effect in some of the grading, is to eliminate the human element. I personally like the human element, but there are companies that are coming up that are 100% automated with artificial intelligence. They claim that they're going to be a lot more accurate. However, machines make mistakes too. So I still think no matter what, you're going to have a little bit of inconsistencies in grading. But I believe that PSA is still the top company, and I have the utmost faith in the grades that I get from PSA. I hope that helps, and keep the questions coming, and thanks for watching.
Thanks, Chad. Kendall, what do you think, man?
Hey, Scott. I love your question here about PSA. What I'm going to do is I'm always going to invest in PSA because in the next 6 to 12 months, I don't see that value going down. Whether they are to and fro or however you want to see that, people always talk about PSA this, PSA that, PSA that, and it's still the leading supplier for the big money ticket, money making autos and things like that. PSA is still the top dog. What you are also seeing is I think you're seeing me, Paul, and Chad get more granular and better at submissions, which is why you're seeing some of our submissions from a little bit longer ago coming back with lower 10 profiles. But I think as we get better, it will get better. So I do not submit to anyone else other than PSA because I don't see a reason to, because in the next 6 to 12 months, the money going back into my pocket is going to be on a PSA 10. I don't care if they do it carelessly or if they do it with different specifications as SGC and CSG. If those companies get more credibility down the road, then I'll switch to them. But for me, it's not about the credibility. It is less about the true, like the 100% down to the detail. If it has a 10 and I can make money on it, I'm in. So I know that sounds a little bit different, but the 10 is what I need. I don't need it to be super, super, super granular. I am not interested in holding perfect cards. I'm interested in selling perfect cards. Thanks, Scott.
Lefty, well said, man. I'm totally with Lefty on that. And I think Chad's answer was super interesting, Scott, where he said, literally, it's a numbers game. So, man, super smart answer by Chad. Like there's if they're both 98% accurate, PSA grading so many more cards means that there's, in Chad's example, 18,000 more errors by PSA just by being literally the same percentage of accuracy as SGC in Chad's example. So really like that. That was awesome. All right, up next, Brett Finkel says, got a question. When you buy in bulk of any player, are you buying from one person or many different sellers to obtain these? Reason I ask is because are you paying shipping charges on all these different cards, whereas one buyer would make it much cheaper? Great question, Brett. Chad, what do you think?
Thanks for the question. Yes, when we talk about buying in bulk, if you can buy in bulk from one person, that is certainly the best way to go because you do save on shipping. However, sometimes that's not feasible. So I like to look at the eBay auctions and include shipping into the dollar amount that I figure I need. So on some of these plays, if we say that the raw card sells for, let's just say $20, I try to make sure that the cards that I'm buying, if I'm buying onesies from different people, that the shipping is, either at or close to the $20 all in. A dollar or two one way or another isn't going to make a big difference, but when you do it, $2 times 20 cards, that's $40. That certainly can eat into your play. So buying in person at a show is the best way to go, but if you do need to buy individual cards from different people to get your bulk play accomplished because you can't get them all from one person, try and do it to where you either find free shipping or include that shipping into the cost of the card. So hope that helps, and great question. Thanks. Keep them coming. Good luck collecting. Thank you.
Yeah, for those of you not familiar, Chad writes a lot of articles for the website at nooffseason.com for premium members on buying in bulk and submitting to PSA in bulk. So, Lefty, what do you think about Brett's question here?
Yo, Brett, this is a great question. When we talk about some of our big bulk submissions, like we've talked about for Spencer Jones, we've recommended for several other players. I'm personally putting together a bulk submission right now, Roman Anthony, and we've also just submitted Ellie De La Cruz again, and then we've also submitted Wembanyama Tops Now stuff for bulk submission. But when we do that, what I typically first go for is I go to eBay and simply just put Roman Anthony, Bowman Chrome, first lot. That's what I do, and see if there's anything in there between 8 to 20 cards. Typically there's around 3 chromes per lot, and sometimes I go with that depending on how much I want to really wait for all those shipments to come in at one time. But most of the time I'm looking for big lots. I found my biggest lots on Facebook groups, actually. So I've just kind of have gotten lucky with them, not necessarily looking for specific players, but going through and knowing which players are investable at the right time has helped me out quite a bit. So I've done this with Junior Caminario. I've done it with or Caminero. I've done it with Roman Anthony. I've done it with James Wood. I've done it with Spencer Jones. I've done this with Drew Jones. And so you just find lots and you put them about 20 or so together and then you send them off. What I do is I buy about 30 of them and then take the top 20 and then I resell the rest. So thanks, Brett. I hope that you are able to find cheap cards. Usually what I do is I find a guy that breaks and has like just a ton of cards and a ton of excess, and that's where I buy from. So thanks, bud. It's a little bit hard, but it's kind of a game, and that's the happy hunting. Thanks, Brett.
Yeah, that's a great call, Lefty. Great tips there, Brett from Lefty there, on basically the search. The search phrase I think is key, and the tip on trying to make contacts with people who just have a ridiculous amount of cards. That can be card shops, that can be breakers. I did notice that at card shows, if you go to the tables, you can kind of tell who's a breaker first and then who's there at the card show trying to move their excess product off of their breaks, like not their huge hits. And typically their value boxes and their dollar boxes are slammed with great stuff. And so, I'm not someone who goes to a card show very often. Like I probably go once a quarter. So I'm not necessarily able to make as many plays that way as I am online. So I like Lefty's idea of finding people on social media, making relationships with them, and following who's going to have a lot of excess bulk from the Bowman Chrome sets releases, and but also the eBay search phrase. That's a great tip on the eBay search phrase. Love that. Thanks, Lefty. All right, up next, Mark Smaja. Great question here. We wrote an article a while back about it was titled "How to Make Thousands of Dollars Buying Lionel Messi Cards." And so this was the article here. For those of you, if you're just listening to this, I'm showing this article. It was contributed by Michael Miller. There was some data in here. The way, for those of you not familiar, so the format of a lot of our articles will be like, we will help you identify a card that has a huge opportunity to get graded and make profit. And so the way that we do that, our formula is to essentially look at what cards sell raw for significantly less than the PSA 9 and the PSA 10, but also what's the gem rate of those cards. Because if you can put together a bulk submission of the same card, then you can profit like every single time. So the Lionel Messi 2014 World Cup Prizm number 12 was the card featured in the article. And the question was about some data. So I'm going to let Chad take it away in terms of the answer. And then I'm going to show Mark the updated data that Chad's talking about in his answer. But Mark's question is just to confirm that your price estimates for the PSA 10 and the PSA 9 are recent ceilings. I see most sales are well below 319, for example, on the PSA 10. What we said in the article which was published on June 19th. So today's Friday, July 21st. July 21st. So it was a month ago. PSA 10 was 317. Mark says he saw one well below that. Okay, fair enough. And then he says, unless I am missing something on using market movers. So we use market movers for all of our data. And I think this is a simple answer. And if you want to use market movers, if you don't use it and use the promo code. Go to marketmoversapp.com, use the promo code no off season, and you get a free 14-day trial, and you'll get 20% off for life. But I think the answer is simple here, Mark. So Chad's going to take it away, and then I'm gonna back him up here. Go ahead, Chad.
Hey, Mark, thanks for the question. As far as the Lionel Messi play is concerned, what happened there was, if you look at the charts in market movers, in early June there was a hype cycle, there was a spike, and the prices that were original article were the current comps at the time that the article was written. So what I've done is I went ahead and updated the prices for that. There's still several $100s to be made on the play. The raw is now running around $20. The PSA 9 is $35. The PSA 10 is $122. When you do all the math, it still equates out to about a $900 potential profit after an $800 total investment. So there's still a 100% profit opportunity there. It's just that the numbers have changed from the original article. So I hope this helps. And as always, good luck, and thanks for the question.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. So this is what I was sharing here a second ago, and it accidentally cut off Chad. But the answer to Mark's question is in these charts from Market Movers. You can see in early June, the PSA 9 spiked up to 160. Then it came back down fairly quickly. So here's this chart. And then the PSA 10 also spiked in early June to 317 and came back down quickly. Okay. Sometimes a card's value can change quickly, either up or down in price. This is clearly what happened here. These are all about the hype cycles or spikes you often hear us talking about. This card came crashing down so quickly that the buy and bulk play that was written about was no longer at that level. Here's the Messi play with the current comps. Still an opportunity to make hundreds of dollars. Hope that helps, and good luck. So what I'm going to do is, thanks to Mark's question and Chad's answer, I'm going to update this article with these numbers. So Michael Miller did a great job. He's a member of our team on the article, but Mark brings up a good question, is that, like, if you do read it a week or two later, it can be significantly different. So we're going to go ahead and update that. I would love member feedback on whether or not you think we really need to be updating the data in the past articles. We certainly can. I think we could do it. We certainly can do it by request. It might be quite a bit to always go back and update the data from every article. Data is going to change all the time. Our job is to recognize the patterns and bring articles to your attention when we do see those patterns. And I think you've always got, like, when we write an article, I think the expectation is that probably 2 weeks after it's published, it's probably going to be a little bit outdated, and you're going to have to, it's not that the play won't still exist. The play should still exist, but the numbers are going to be different. So I don't know that we need to go back and update all the numbers all the time, but I do think it's good to have a conversation about it. So Mark, thanks for bringing it to our attention, and we hopefully that's valuable for you. So, segueing over to Deborah Roberts. Deborah is a longtime supporter of the Sports Card Strategy Show and nooffseason.com. She's been a premium member off and on for the last couple of years. We appreciate that. She's currently a premium member. Deborah, we love you. We appreciate you. She's saying she's got a couple questions in this episode. Her first question is, I'm wondering if there is any way you could integrate a search engine into your fabulous website. Like right now, I would want to know what you said about selling Joe Burrow, which you mentioned would be covered in this episode, but I don't have time to listen to the entire episode. I would like to know the other times that you have mentioned many other players. I don't know if what I'm asking for is the moon, because I know nothing about website development, maintenance, etc. Thank you for all you do to help us make good decisions. Yeah, I'm glad. See, I wanted to talk about it's much easier and I think more beneficial for me to talk about this on a show sometimes than it is to write individual emails back to members. So that's why I thank you, Deborah, for the question, and I'll give you a response here on the Overflow show for the premium members. So, yes, I can add a search engine to nooffseason.com. That would be relatively simple to do. It's probably something I could do within the next few months. I don't know that I will, but I will take it into consideration. If many members come back and say, yeah, we really want to search, we really want to be able to search, that would be fine. So the reason why I think sometimes searching doesn't always give you back the results you're looking for. So if you search for Joe Burrow or selling Joe Burrow or something like that, I could make it to where you would get results on that, but those results on selling Joe Burrow might literally be from 2021, which would not really do anyone any good. So I think I can come up with a version of what, a lot of people have asked, like, what happened to the buy, sell, and the hold? I'll kind of address that too. So to me, the more I really dug into the content that we were putting out there back when we had the buy, sell, hold, it became pretty obvious to me that the only valuable content from the buy, sell, hold was really the buy. Because, you could make an argument that the sell's valuable too. Like, you want to know when to sell people. And maybe we've taken that away, and that's kind of Deborah's point here. One of her points is that we need to do a better job of letting people know when to sell certain players. So that makes sense. I think that would be easier, and we could add that back in a more beneficial way to the members than the search engine. What we've done is we've focused on adding articles that tell you literally who to buy now, what cards to buy, and when to sell the cards. And so I think that if we continue that pattern, we're going to continue to give the premium members essentially everything that's the most valuable without having to make it where we're saying like 80% of the people are a hold. Because really the buy, sell, hold does depend not only on the player, but also on the card. Basically what I was noticing is that most of our content when we had that format was telling you to hold players. Well, that's not really that valuable. We want to be letting you know when there's a transaction to make, whether it's buying or selling. And so what we decided to do several months ago is say, look, we're going to start writing articles every week, multiple articles every week, and we're going to publish them around the premise that these are the cards, not necessarily just the players, but these are the specific cards that you should be buying now. Here's what you should be doing with them to increase their value. Sometimes that's grading, sometimes that's cracking, sometimes it's holding, but then here's when you are supposed to sell them. So I think we could do a better job of communicating that and making that more prevalent on the website. We do have, most of our subscribers are used to kind of the older buy, sell, hold format where we had player profiles, but we've got a lot of new people coming in. More new people coming in than old people. So I'd really love everyone's feedback, and I'd love to understand what you all think is most valuable. All right. Back to some video answers here from the team. Up next is Irvin R. Irvin R, thanks so much for the question. He's got two questions. He says, number one, on last week's Overflow show, you guys were saying that buying more than 5 players to flip is too much. Yeah, that was in reference to a card show. But I did also add that I thought that like narrowing the focus is really the best strategy. And I thought that 5 might be too much. I'm having a problem of being all over the place with all of these great plays you guys provide every week. I could see that. What are the strategies you guys use to stay grounded on a few players? His second question is, I have been collecting for years now, but recently got into flipping cards. This is going to be my first attempt at flipping cards on a serious level. By listening to the shows, I had no idea that there were seasons to flipping at the right time. Absolutely, bro. It's only really about seasons. It's only really about timing. Is there a website or article that gives you guys a detail on times to start buying and selling football, basketball, and baseball? Yes, nooffseason.com. nooffseason.com is that website. We do that. We talk about that all the time on all of our shows. And then we also talk about that all the time on the website. And we will continue to try to do the best job we possibly can at elevating that content for our premium members. So, all right, Irvin, let's get into your answers, man. And then I'll add a little bit of color around that. So, Kendall, what do you think about Irvin's question?
Hey, Irvin, thanks for your question. Is in regards to answer number one, in terms of buying 5 players and then we give you stuff each week, we are expecting for us to give you too much information and for you to filter through that and sift through it. And what I would recommend is buying players that you watch regularly and you know a ton about. Don't try to invest in something you don't understand. That is a Warren Buffett quote. Well, it's probably not as a direct quote, but that is a Warren Buffett saying. And what I would recommend is Paul particularly invests in small amounts of players to a large degree. My strategy is invest in 5 to 10 players per sport, and then invest in 2 to 3 cards of them per sport. So I have kind of more of a wide net that way. But when we win differently. So I win when different players are making it up and down, and then I lose when players are making it up and down. Paul wins big when one of the guys he's investing in does really well, but he also loses big if a guy falls off the map. So we saw this a lot with the Wembanyama stuff. Wembanyama, I had about 3 cards, and so I sold all those and made good wins. Paul had a much significant bigger base, and so it's just a different strategy. Paul won a really big amount in Wembanyama, but I've got all these baseball prospects that I'm trying to flip trade as well. And I'm doing big on those kind of things. So it's all depending on your strategy. We recommend a couple of different things, but eventually we know that you guys will find a strategy that works for you. And that's what we're trying to build in you, is an investing mindset, not necessarily just copying what we're doing. So we're giving you things, we're giving you things to look at, but eventually we want you to be a self-feeder. And so that's what we try to do. So if you can focus on 5, focus on 5. If you can focus on more than that, do that. In terms of your second question, we love that you're back, and there is actually seasons to this. So what I recommend is buying during the off season and selling during season. Now that is an oversimplification of what it is. There are different cycles in different sports. For instance, in basketball, you have a spike at the beginning of the season, a spike at the trade deadline, and a spike at the end of the season. But you also have a spike during the summer league because the summer league is highly televised. So when you're going to think about a big media outlet, you're going to look at the sports differently. Media-wise, there's a lot of media around football and basketball. There's a lot of media around international soccer, around some of the leagues, around the Champions League players and some of the big names, around a big competition like the World Cup or something like that. There's not a lot of public media around baseball, so you're going to have to get a niche market feel there. So it's just a little bit based on which sports you're investing in, but the oversimplification is buy during the off-season and sell during the season. So there you go, Irvin. Thanks for your help, man. And we love having you.
Yeah, I would say I'm going to do a better job of elevating this kind of content on the website because of Irvin's question, but also Lefty's right, but I'll go into a little bit more detail right now. So each sport's different. Let's take football. Football, there's always the best buying opportunities are always June, November, and December. Every other time of year for football, it's a hype cycle. So it depends on the player. So if you're buying, the easiest way to make money buying and flipping football cards is to load up on top tier talent and their top cards. Their most liquid cards, not necessarily their most expensive cards, but the ones that transact the most often. On like a Joe Burrow 2020 Prizm PSA 10, for example, trends for around $200 during the down times and can be as high as $400 and $450 during the up times. The up times being the biggest up times being August or basically January, February, March. A lot of hype. Football takes the longest to ramp down, meaning there, even after the Super Bowl, there's 6 weeks where the prices remain pretty high. And then leading up to the draft, there's immediately draft hype. And so that can even trigger veteran card prices to go up depending on what happens in free agency and the draft. So a lot of opportunity in football. There's also like the reason why it's not as turnkey to make like a chart or a graph or like write one article about it is because you have little intricacies like the Bowman University Chrome releases. So like Caleb Williams is a guy that I've been buying a lot of because my plan with him is to sell during the NFL draft 2024. So to me, there's going to be a large ramp up of like right now buying Caleb Williams makes a lot of sense. It's July. So like when college football season starts, his prices are going to go up. If he wins the Heisman Trophy, his prices are going to go up. NFL draft talk all the way from like, I mean, his prices might go down again in like late January, early February, but then as soon as the Super Bowl is over, Caleb Williams prices are going to start going up. So it depends on what player you're targeting because these pre-rookie sets are coming out more and more. But generally for the pro uniform stuff that's already established, lefty in my example work really well. I would say NBA is trickier because you really only have I'm learning more that for the NBA, you have to pick the player correctly to make money. So for example, like you had to have, if you would have bought Giannis during a downtime, which would have been the downtime for basketball is like August and September. Basketball card prices start to trend back up big time in October is when October is a great time to sell basketball cards. If you have the right players, selling them in November is big, but you have to have the right players. Then you get a lull in December, big time lull in December. Then you've got a little bit of a slow ramp up in January, February over the All-Star break. And then there's a big time ramp up due to like potential playoff hype, but you have to pick the right player. So like if you buy Luka and then Luka doesn't make the playoffs, that doesn't help you. If you buy Tatum and he doesn't win the championship, that doesn't help you. If you buy Giannis and he doesn't win the championship, that doesn't help you. If you buy Joker and he wins the championship, that helps you, but you had to have bought Joker, not like Joker, Embiid, and like, so another reason this actually kind of goes back also, Irvin, to your first question. They kind of go together. So if you try to flip basketball cards and buy the superstars, you can't buy like 5 superstars in basketball and make money because only one of those superstars is going to win the NBA championship, and that's going to be the spike. So if you hit on one of them, that means you missed on the other 4. So you're probably going to there's a chance you'll break even or lose money. You won't ever lose big. You'll have fun along the way. I'm not saying don't do it, but I'm saying like if your goal is to only ever profit, then you're giving yourself the better chance by simply buying well-known players during the lower priced months and then selling them during the higher priced months and not waiting to find out or putting all your eggs in one basket in terms of the guy's got to win a championship. So a good example of like the guy's got to win a championship would be like a second guy on a team like Jaylen Brown. So like let's say you could buy Tatum. He's the first guy on the Celtics. You could buy Tatum low during December, and then you could flip Tatum in February and make money. But if you buy Jaylen Brown in December, you might not make any money on Jaylen Brown unless he does something spectacular in the NBA Finals because he's like a well-known guy, not super cheap, but also like not the main guy. The other way to make money is like it's always picking the right player, which is the hardest thing. So I think if you look at baseball, I'm like F1 has a different pattern too. F1's pattern is like buy in December, sell in last week of February, early March. Top drivers, you'll make money. Baseball, I like baseball a lot because if you buy, say, 3 of the top prospects and you load up on them and they've never been called up before and they're due to be called up in the next 18 months, sell them upon call up and you'll make money. Now we're about to get to a couple questions here that may bring a caveat into that scenario. But we also have an answer from the sports card Dr. Chad Gill for you. So we'll see what Chad has to say about Irvin's question. Chad, what do you think?
Irvin, and thanks for the question. You know, that is a question that I'm surprised doesn't get asked more often. When I first started getting into the flipping of sports cards, I struggled with the same exact thing because there are literally thousands of cards that you can buy and make plays on and make money on. So when you're following these shows and programs and we're giving you tips, we're giving you different players every single week. You got to stay focused and figure out what you want to do and limit it to the, where we had said 5 is too many. Unless you have an unlimited budget, pick out 1 or 2 or 3 or even up to 5 players and do them one at a time. A lot of these plays, you can go back once you get the play done, you make and flip and make your money. You can go back and look at these and see if they're still relevant, or there's always going to be more flips to do in the future. So don't feel the need to have to play every single play that we say. That's just not feasible. And we don't do them either. That's why, we've got 3 or 4 different or 5, even 5 different guys contributing to the nooffseason.com. And each one of us does things a little bit differently, and that's what makes the show so great is you get a lot of different perspectives and a lot of different opportunities. So don't get overwhelmed. You don't need to do them all. Just settle in, pick a couple of players that you like or that you want to collect, and I just say start one at a time. Do one play, learn how to do it. You'll get some ups and some downs yourself that you're like, geez, I wish I would have done this differently, or I wish I would have bought things differently, or I wish I would have done something differently. And you're going to get into a groove on doing things your very own way, taking our advice on players and then figuring out how to do it your way. And maybe you'll become a future contributor to the show and you can become the teacher instead of the student and show us some things that you've learned that work best for you. The nice thing about this hobby is sharing all of our advice with each other. It just makes it a great tight-knit community and it helps us all. So I hope this helps. Good luck collecting and thanks for the question. Keep them coming.
Yeah, Chad's right. We'd love to hear from you, Irvin, on what exact plays you end up making, what you learn from it, and how. Please keep letting us know how we can help you out. Hopefully that helps you. Up next, Deborah Roberts. So Deborah's question. So we asked this and answered this on an episode of the Sports Card Strategy Show. Remember you did one of your broadcasts and addressed my question about Panini points. Your conclusion was that I should sell them. The problem is that I didn't have a card that said I had 20,000 Panini points. Instead, I had them in my Panini account. So I wasn't able to sell them on eBay or elsewhere. Makes sense. She says, I finally lucked out and got 5 2020 Phoenix football white shimmer packs. They're selling on eBay between $115 and $120. So Deborah did her research here. Good work, Deborah. She figured out what was selling high on eBay that she could purchase with her Panini points, and she made that purchase happen. It's amazing to me that anyone would pay that much money for 3 cards on the Phoenix level, but there are 1-of-1 autographs randomly inserted. The rest of the possibilities don't look like much stuff I've never heard of. These points only cost me $500, so at least I will break even. Some websites are even selling as high as $300 per pack. So she bought 5 of them. They're selling for, let's say, $150. So she's going to make, she'll for sure easily make her money, but she'll make a lot of profit on this. I want to thank you for your help over the years. All right. She also thinks that Baker Mayfield is going to surprise the world and show what he can do with the crappy team. All right. I think he's going to get benched. I don't think Baker Mayfield's good at all. Sorry, Deborah. But I did ask the guys to answer your question and talk about how you did with your Panini points and why. So let's get to the guys.
Hi, Deborah. Thanks for the question. With the Panini points, we did recommend that you sell them. I didn't completely understand that your points were not the actual cards, they were on your account. So I think you nailed it. Buying the speckled packs, those are the most desirable things you can buy with the Panini points. So buying those and selling them to recover your money, I think, is the best case scenario if you can't sell the cards themselves. So I think you nailed it. Great job, and keep the questions coming. Thank you.
Thanks, Chad. All right, let's see what Chase had to say about Deborah's move. Chase, what do you think?
Hey Deborah, thanks for commenting and sharing your story about how you use your Panini points. So what you did is usually what I would recommend doing with Panini points, and that's if you're opening in enough wax to where you're getting large amounts of Panini points, the best thing to spend those on are the packs. So usually like the Prizm White Sparkle packs or the Optic White Sparkle packs that they do for like all the sports, select Cosmic packs. That's usually what you would get the best value out of using those Panini points. If you can't get enough to save up for those, I would just say sell the points and like get what you can get for them. But the packs are definitely where you're gonna get the most bang for your buck. I wouldn't really. Usually, they don't have anything like in the store that you can use like points on as far as like specific cards. Uh, Panini will every now and then make like a big social media post and saying that like, oh, these cards are coming to rewards, blah blah blah. So that's why if you don't follow Panini on like any like social media, it's worth it because sometimes okay they haven't done in a while, but they will update. They'll share what they're updating on the reward site, and it's actually some good stuff. But yeah, I think you did pretty good. The Phoenix packs won't be as popular as the Optic or like the Prizm White Sparkles or the Cosmic packs, but still, I think you did a pretty good job. I know you can get a lot of those packs. I wouldn't open the packs because usually those packs are like the full set, like the full player set. So if the player set's like 150 players, there's probably only like 2 or 3 that are like worth getting, and so you have very low odds of hitting on them. So I would just recommend selling the packs. But I think overall you did good. Thanks for commenting, and if you do open them, I hope you. I wish you good luck on what you pull out of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Chase. I know, Deborah, that Kendall cannot wait to answer any question coming in from you. So, Kendall, what do you think about Deborah's
Deborah, welcome back. We love your question about this Panini points, especially when you add the nuance of redeemed already Panini points in your Panini wallet on the Panini store. So we do say that you can sell Panini points, but they still have to be unredeemed. So that's when you find the Panini points cards in a card pack. We would recommend selling those straight up on eBay. But you have asked the question here about what to do if you have Panini points on your wallet. And what we would say is exactly what you recommended. I would say you buy something with a high chase rate and a high chase probability. For instance, you picked out here these shimmer packs that have a one of one or a one of one randomly inserted. I think that is a good idea to try to invest in that, create a hype cycle, and try to get your money back for those Panini points. Other than that, maybe you could find a rare positionally good player auto. Sometimes I know at one point they put a bunch of Luka autos on there. Maybe you could do something like that, or if there's a quarterback or a point guard. But specifically, they put a bunch of stuff that is just PC related rather than investability related. So I would stay away from Panini points. I always sell them, but if you do have them already redeemed, then I would buy something with a chase rate like what you talked about. So absolutely great play here, and sell those items immediately when you would get them. I do not rip them, sell them in the pack. Thanks, Deborah. Good to hear from you. Glad you're still hanging on with us here at nooffseason.com.
Yep, me too. Thanks, Lefty. Good work. All right. Up next, Scott Fuquay says, Paul, I know you're a short-term buy and flip within 6 months, so I'm asking this to Chad and Lefty. Who are current players that are solid long-term investments? Players that after they retire will continue to increase in value. I'll answer too, but I understand what you're saying here, Scott. You're clearly someone who listens to us frequently, and I appreciate that. So he says, I certainly expect the long-term increases will include guys like LeBron, Steph Curry, Shohei Ohtani, Messi, Ronaldo, and Pat Mahomes. Those are the only ones I think are sure things. How about other guys like Vlad Guerrero, Juan Soto, Ronald Acuna, Mike Trout, Giannis? I love Giannis. Luka, and he says too early to tell on Luka. It provides perspective on if we all should look for a peak to unload cards, or are some of these players sell now or later? Either way is a safe bet. I want to compliment the nooffseason.com team on providing valuable information. Thank you very much. I am so disappointed in most sites that give advice to buy like amazingly expensive cards like 2018 Topps Transcendent Shohei Ohtani rookie autograph series for $2,000 to $7,000, or 2009 Bowman Chrome autograph Mike Trout rookie card for $9,000. Let me save people some time. It's a good investment to buy the best players' rookie auto cards that are low pop and low serial numbers. Yeah, I agree with you, Scott. That's a big pet peeve of mine as well. I think I call that stuff is Captain Obvious. We try not to be I think our mission statement here is like, don't be Captain Obvious. So we are not Captain Obvious here, and that's what you're hitting on. So I appreciate you recognizing that and complimenting us for that. We certainly want to provide the most value for you. So Scott, without further ado, here's Chad Gill on what he thinks you should do.
Hey, Scott, thanks for the question. You've got some really good questions, some in-depth questions. Hopefully our answers are helping you out. The question about who is the most long-term or best long-term investments, obviously, as you stated, there are the obvious ones, but the thing about long-term investing versus short-term investing is there's two things you need to understand. First is for a player to be long-term investable, they've got to have a Hall of Fame career. If they don't have a Hall of Fame career, they aren't going to have a lot of value for years to come. So that's the first thing. You got to make sure that you're investing in Hall of Fame players. The second thing that you want to keep into account is when a set comes out, a brand new set, for the first 3 to 5 years, there's 8 to 12 players that are collectible or investable or flippable. And it kind of ebbs and flows as players find their own. Sometimes it takes 4 or 5 years for a player like Shea Gilgeous to hit his stride, and other times they hit right away like a John Morant in his first year. But you want to keep in mind that there's 8 to 12 when a new class comes out. Like, for example, this year, the 2023 baseball class seems absolutely loaded. However, history tells us that in 10, 12, 15, 20, 25 years, long-term investable players, there's going to be anywhere from 1 to 3 in each class, typically. There are exceptions to every rule. There's some years where there might not be any, and there's other, you might have 4 or 5, but typically it's 1 to 3. So obviously, when you're looking at the players that are investable, you've got the obvious ones, which currently playing would be Ohtani and Mike Trout. Those are the obvious long-term collectible for baseball. For basketball, you've got LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Stephen Curry, and Giannis. I think those 4 are the safest long-term investments for basketball. And then for football, you've got Tom Brady, who recently retired. Now there's talk maybe he's coming back, maybe he isn't. But Tom Brady's the safest play in football. along with Patrick Mahomes, who's still playing. He's probably one of the next safest plays in terms of long-term investability. But I think what you're looking for is some nuggets of information as to who I think aren't the obvious ones. So I'm going to throw out in baseball, guys that have a Hall of Fame type career. They're on pace with their WAR to be Hall of Famers. Mookie Betts, Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado. Those three guys are pretty much locks. If they can have a couple more decent years, they're going to be locks for the Hall of Fame. Typically, pitchers don't hold a ton of value. However, you get a generational talent every so many years that does hold value. And you've got that in Clayton Kershaw and Justin Verlander. Those two are pitchers that I invest in my own portfolio, my own personal collection. Then you've got guys like Joey Votto, Manny Machado, Miguel Cabrera. Those guys are all guys that should or could potentially end up in the Hall of Fame and should and could have some good value long term. For basketball, it gets a little bit trickier. You've got Russell Westbrook, who I think is a lock for the Hall of Fame. However, towards the end of his career, the hobby doesn't really like him much. So I don't know if the induction into the Hall of Fame is going to help his card prices a ton, but he is a lock for the Hall of Fame. Chris Paul is a lock for the Hall of Fame. And then you've got guys like James Harden, who's more than likely going to make it. But again, a guy that has good value right now, but a lot of the collectors don't really care for him. You got Joker, who is a generational talent, probably going to win multiple MVPs and multiple championships over the year. However, the hobby doesn't give a lot of love to big guys. You look at Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Those are, you almost have to be that type of talent to have your cards be worth a ton of value. You look at Shaquille O'Neal, who is a top 10 or 15 player of all time in the NBA, and his values are not what they should be, again, because he's a bigger player. So I do worry a little bit about Joker and Joel Embiid, those types of, potential Hall of Famers, but bigger guys that don't get a lot of hobby love. But then you've got guys like Kawhi Leonard and Damian Lillard, who I think are both at this point on track to end up in the Hall of Fame as well. Kawhi Leonard, when he's healthy, he's a hobby darling, as well as Damian Lillard. If he gets traded to a good team, you're going to see their prices spike, and I think long-term they have some good value. And then in football, you've got Aaron Rodgers, who Paul hates, but there's no doubt about his Hall of Fame career, one of the top
Don't buy Aaron
5 or
Rodgers.
10 quarterbacks in the history of
Do
the
not buy Aaron
NFL,
Rodgers.
statistically
Trust me.
speaking.
Nope.
But again, the hobby doesn't like him. So his PSA 10 Topps cards are down to around $300, which for me I think is an absolute steal.
Don't do it.
I bought 3 of them last year. I bought 2 more this year. I own, I think, 7 total of Aaron Rodgers cards, because at that price, I just think for his career, that's too cheap.
That's an L for Chad.
Then you've got guys like Devontae Adams, who another 2 or 3 years like he's been putting up, and he's going to be a lock. You got guys like Russell Wilson, who probably is a Hall of Famer if his career were to end. However, ending on a sour note in Denver has hurt his values a little bit. So if he can have a bounce back year this year, or even next couple of years, Russell Wilson is another guy that could have some long-term value. And then guys that don't really get a lot of hobby love are kickers, but Justin Tucker, greatest kicker of all time. I don't think anybody can argue that. I don't know as those cards are going to have a ton of value, but he's a lock for the Hall of Fame. Kind of a sneaky play, as is Aaron Donald. He's a generational talent on the defensive side of the ball. But again, his stuff doesn't bring a ton of money because he's a defensive player. So those are some guys that you could look at for long-term investments that aren't that elite type caliber, nor are they prices. Hope this answers your questions. Keep them coming. Love hearing from you. And as always, happy collecting and good luck. Thanks, Scott.
So, Scott, I think Chad kind of took that question and ran with it in the direction of maybe selling the guys when they have a hype spike when they're inducted into a Hall of Fame. I don't know. I think that that's probably still helpful information for you. I will add to Chad that I don't think any of the names that Chad mentioned at all hold any value after they retire other than a Hall of Fame spike. Like I think they're all just like very average at best Hall of Famers. And I think that in order to hold value in the long term, you have to look. So here's what I would do. The exercise I would encourage you to do would be, okay, first of all, ask yourself, like, when do you want to sell these cards? If you want to sell these cards and the requirement is just at some point after they retire, then I do think a decent strategy would be to sell during a Hall of Fame announcement potential spike. There might not be a spike for everyone, but I suppose that all the names that Chad mentioned as potential Hall of Famers are probably correct, and that you could, regardless of what they do from here on out, you could benefit from them becoming a Hall of Famer and then selling when that actually happens. However, I don't know if that's what you're asking. If you're asking longer term hold, I don't know that we could really. The reason why I don't there's a reason why I don't buy guys to hold long term, and it's not because I'm impatient. It's because I can't tell you with any confidence that anyone's cards would go up after they retire, because all of the hype spikes I see are all for guys that are currently active. Now, I say that because my answer to your question is actually 3 players. I'm going to hold on my 3 players until after we see what Lefty says, because I don't want to steal any of his thunder here. But Lefty, what do you think about Scott's question? I know you're probably drooling over this one.
Hey Scott, love your question, and I think there's a little bit of nuances here. I love the long-term investment post-retirement for a couple of players that are going to be in the media year after year after year and month after month after month. LeBron is never going to not be in sports. He is a sports guy. He is going to invest in sports after he retires, and he's going to be a part of sports for the long term. Now, I do see a guy like Steph Curry focusing more on outside of sports, but I could see him doing stuff like playing golf and having a successful golfing career. We just saw him win a tournament this week that was a celebrity tournament. Shohei, I could see like falling back into the background and just being a legend. Messi, I could see him being involved in so much stuff now that we see MLS rising. I think Messi could be really, really investable in the long term. Ronaldo can't get out of his own way sometimes, and Mahomes, I would not invest in him long term. I would get out of him while he's in his playing career. In terms of the guys like Vlad, Soto, Acuna, Mike, Trout, Giannis, and Luka, I don't like Luka out of all of those, but everything else I would invest for their career and sell at peaks. And actually, I would take Giannis in the long term as well, and probably Mike Trout in the long term as well. In those, and out of you also ask a question based off of a Topps Transcendence 2018 Shohei Ohtani rookie card versus a 2009 Bowman Chrome autograph Mike Trout card. I personally would pick the Shoheis, or maybe if I could get 2 or 3 of them for that 9,000 value that the other Mike Trout is going for. I would pick Shohei. I think in the long term, Shohei is more valuable than Mike Trout. I don't see Mike Trout holding up long term, although injuries could be a problem for Shohei as well in his pitching career. I don't think he's going to stop hitting. The guy's still fast as lightning, and I'm investing. I would think Shohei for me is the top of the list for guys that I'm investing in long term. So thanks, man. We're glad you're here, Scott. Continue to submit questions, and just it's always good to invest in great baseball players, and this is kind of cutting a knife here between two of the best. So thanks, Scott.
All right. So Scott, here's my answer. I think Chad and Lefty did a great job. I don't disagree with anything they said other than Aaron Rodgers. Do not buy Aaron Rodgers. Like, do not spend one. Like, if somebody offered me a free Aaron Rodgers card, I might take the one that Chad bought and I would immediately sell it just because I don't want that card. So it'd be like a free $300, but it's going to go down. Anyway, here's what I would do. Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan. I know that he's not active and he's not about to retire. And that was the premise of your question. The premise of your question was talking about guys like Vlad Jr. and who else did you mention? You mentioned Vlad, Soto, Acuna, Trout, Giannis, Luka. I get that. I would, all of those guys, there's going to be opportunities to buy them, but I would always sell them to make money on. I would not long-term hold them. I would actually work on flipping some of those guys' cards over the next couple of years to buy some Michael Jordans, because I think Michael Jordan is the guy that we all look back on 50 years from now. I mean, I'll be in my 90s, so maybe it's more like 20 years from now, I'll be in my 60s. I think, hopefully I'll have grandkids and stuff like that, and I'll be able to show my Michael Jordan cards to my grandkids, and it's going to be the equivalent of the Mickey Mantle. I mean, so this is kind of where I was going with Chad's answer and kind of disagreeing with Chad a little bit, is that when I said that I don't think I think all of his names are very average Hall of Famers. Like, we look back, who do we look back on now? We look back on Willie Mays and Mickey Mantle and Jackie Robinson. Pretty much that's it. We've got no football players that stand out above other football players. We've got, I mean, obviously there's Joe Montana, there's Jerry Rice, there's Tom Brady. Of course there's Tom Brady, but like all those guys, I mean, Peyton Manning undervalued. But he's not someone that I'm going to totally go all in on. I would totally go all in on Michael Jordan. Lefty said LeBron James. He's in the conversation for me. So it's Jordan, LeBron, and then for me, LeBron though is more of a buy now, sell during a future hype spike within the next 2 to 3 years, which probably doesn't surprise you. Jordan's the only long-term hold. There's two other guys that I would buy now. We've already said their names, but it's Ohtani and Mahomes. A little spoiler alert for this upcoming Monday's Sports Card Strategy Show. I'm going to be talking about how there's only two players I'm looking for at the National, and it's going to be Ohtani and Mahomes. Reason being is that there's just no doubt that these guys, you're just not going to lose money on these guys. Mahomes is going to be a guy who's going to always be in contention for a Super Bowl, which is literally the only thing that is going to drive up football card prices for guys of his caliber. So you might as well go all in on Mahomes. And then Ohtani is going to be a guy that, he's already dominant on offense and on defense as a pitcher. And he's going to have huge hype spikes coming up. Trout's not going to win a World Series. I think Ohtani could. And Ohtani, baby. But again, it's not like a long-term, like, so Ohtani and Trout for me Ohtani and Mahomes for me are more like longer term holds for me, but I would still sell them within the next few years. Whereas Jordan is probably the only player. James would be in the Ohtani and Mahomes category. Jordan is in a league of his own, a class of his own for me in terms of players that I would hold like long term, like decades. Jordan, he's literally the only one. All right, so let's move on to a great question from our friend Jeff Ulrich, Dinged Corners. Jeff says, would you hold this card for a very long time or sell this season? I'm going to put the card up here in a second. Auctions typically scare me. Sorry, Paul, but with Shohei doing crazy things every other day, I feel like having a card that is only one of a kind in terms of current eBay listings for auction could capture value several of those 10 days during spikes in his value that doesn't, so 10-day auctions, value that doesn't go away because he doesn't hit a home run the next day. I totally agree with what Jeff's saying here. I love this Shohei card, but I feel like it might be time to take money off the table and hope to rebuy for less. Not necessarily this particular card in December and January. I'm going to break this down here in a second. I feel like the BBM rookies in high grade are undervalued, relatively speaking. I think I'm talking myself into keeping it right now. I'll stop. Excited to hear your thoughts. So here's the card from Jeff. And it is a beautiful Ohtani card. It's a 2013 BBM Rookie Edition number 42, Shohei Ohtani, batting silver foil facsimile auto, gem mint 10. So it's not a real auto, but it is an amazing card. And so we've got Lefty and Chad queued up here to give you their answers. But before I break that down, before I let them answer, I'm gonna break it down a little bit. So basically, what Jeff is talking about is he doesn't like. I like auctions. I like 10-day auctions. The reason I like 10-day auctions is because if you list at the right time, which you should always be paying attention to what's happening with players and their performances and their media spikes and things like that. And if you list at the right time, you can have a 10-day auction, and then you give yourself 10 full days to get as many bids as you possibly can, create bidding wars. That's how I like to maximize my profits on cards. So Jeff's saying he's thinking that because Ohtani's so hot right now, he might want to sell this card in a 10-day auction during the baseball season and then buy back in the lull in December. So let's hear what Chad had to say first.
Hey, Jeff. First off, that Shohei Ohtani card is absolute fire. Love that card. That's an amazing card. With Ohtani, right now, I do think auctions are safe. I, too, am not an auction guy. However, I did just list a raw Ohtani base card as an auction on eBay, just simply because I've seen some of these auctions go crazy. And I actually think right now you've got a chance at underpricing the card by putting a buy it now on there. There's so much demand for Ohtani that I think that whatever you think the card is worth, it might actually do more on auction. I love the idea of putting it out there right before trade deadline. I don't think he's going to get traded. However, the Angels today did say that they are open to trades, but that they want multiple top 100 prospects plus draft picks. So we'll stay tuned. We'll see. But listing it at an auction ending on June 30th is definitely the way to go. And I'll be on there helping bid the card up for you. Good luck and awesome card. Thanks for the question.
I think you meant July 30th, not June 30th, because that is the MLB trade deadline. So I know Jeff's itching to get this answer back to you, but we got to get Lefty in here, Jeff, and then you'll have all the information you need from us to make your decision. Take everything into consideration. I will say, actually, while I cue Lefty up here, that I would sell the card. I think like this is why, see, identifying the moment, right? And then executing during the moment is probably the hardest thing to actually do without some kind of remorse, especially with a guy like Shohei. But Jeff, if it were me, I would go ahead and list this. And I think if you list it to end, you could still list it in a 7-day auction to end on July 30th after the timing of this answer. I think the 3 days aren't going to matter as much for a guy like Ohtani. I think like, and if you set your minimum bid a little bit higher, like set your minimum bid up actually closer to what you want to get for the card. Or maybe set your minimum bid like 60% of what you want to get for the card, or even 70% of what you want to get for the card potentially. And then just see what happens, man. That I think that you're going to get a lot of bids for an Ohtani card like this. But Lefty, what do you think?
Man, Jeff with the second question. This is an outstanding card. Your Shohei PSA 10. Please message me about it. I just would love to see this card. If you're going to be at the National, please bring it with you, because this card I want to take a picture with. Like, this is something that is outstanding. You've got a PSA 10 2013 BBM Rookie Edition. This is the rookie card of his Ham Fighter jersey here, and he's got an English autograph, he's got his number, and he's got his Japanese autograph. This is his premier hitting BBM rookie card. There actually is a pitching BBM rookie card as well, but BBM is the supplier of the Japanese cards. I love this card. I have one that's not autographed, but I have this BBM hitter rookie card. But this is awesome. I would hold this for the long term. I would take out loans against this. I would use this as leverage someday and get like a home equity loan out of this one card. You're going to be able to do some incredible stuff with this. If you do want to sell it, I would love to be involved in that conversation. Not that I could afford it, but I just want to know what that is like. But this card is outstanding. Please bring it to the National and show it to me, Paul and Chad. We would love to have a picture with this specific card. Thanks, brother. Hold it forever. Please don't get rid of it. And if you do, I want to find a way to I'll try to find a way to get it in my possession. So you're the best, Jeff. Thanks for your answers, and we'll see you soon.
Hold it forever, he says. Okay. Jeff, this is a tough one, man. I say sell. Lefty says hold forever. I'm never going to hold any card forever. So that my answer shouldn't surprise you. But I think what we don't have is we don't have all the information from you. We don't know how much you bought it for, and we don't know how much you're looking to get for it. And I think we need that information from you to feel super confident in terms of making a recommendation. But I do not think you can go super wrong here. I think that you would be selling at an opportune time to sell an Ohtani card. You would be probably not shooting yourself in the foot by holding it. So if you're very, very concerned or worried or scared or nervous or just unsure, I would say just hold the card. So my final answer, Jeff, is just go ahead and hold this Ohtani card, because I'm different than you. I'm different than everybody else out there. We're all a little bit different from each other. Situations are different. I happen to know enough about you to know that you're more in it for the long game and you don't necessarily need the money. If you were somebody out there that needed to make the money to make some kind of payment in their life, I would advise them to sell the card. If it was a lesser Ohtani card, less rare, I would say great time to sell Ohtani cards and then buy back in later. But because it's rare, because Lefty says hold it forever, and because Chad and Lefty and I all agree that Ohtani is an amazing long-term hold, I would say just go ahead and hold the card, brother. All right. Up next, we got 2 more questions on the Overflow Show. So Adam Rotler got one in at the final buzzer here. He says, hey, Paul, I had an observation and wanted your guys' take on it. This is a great one. It seems like the Elly De La Cruz crazy train has stolen the card thunder from all of the call-ups after him. Yes, you're right. I'm glad you brought this up, Adam. Specifically, ND Rodriguez, as it appears he got 0 bump after being called up, or maybe even lost some value. Also, as Elly comes back to earth a little bit, what kind of hype hangover might the baseball market see? I'll be looking forward to the national content, as I can't make it. Well, we are going to bring some fire content for you, Adam. But first, let's talk to the guys about this Elly De La Cruz sort of cock block, for lack of a better term, on the other prospects. Chad, what do you think about Adam's question here?
Hey, Adam, thanks for the question, and that's a great observation. Absolutely, Elly Mania is putting a big cloud and shadow on some of these other players getting called up, ND Rodriguez being one of them. There are several players that have been called up lately, and they've gotten a very little to no bump at all. I do think the Elly craze is going to continue. I do think that he is going to shadow some of these other players getting called up. Somebody's going to have to get called up and do something wild and exciting for their card values to have a significant bump the rest of the year. Sometimes you have a player like Elly that just dominates the spotlight, and that is the case this year. It does not mean that you can't make money on some of these other prospects. It's just you have to be careful. I actually am hoping that some of the other prospects wait till 2024 to get called up, because I am afraid that Elly will continue to overshadow him. So great question, great observation. Thanks for the question, and keep them coming.
All right. Chad agrees, and it's interesting insights from Chad. We haven't come across this before. So what to do when one prospect overshadows other call-ups? Kendall, what do you think, man?
Hey Adam, great question. I do actually think that the Ellie crazy train is going to stop at some point, whether that's some sort of an injury maybe that he gets, God forbid, but still maybe that happens. Maybe he slumps for a little bit, and we saw the Julio Rodriguez mania happen last year, and now he's definitely come back down to earth, and is definitely come back down to earth. And guys like Jonathan India, who is not really a regular on that Reds team anymore, is still having some better numbers than Julio Rodriguez. So we're just seeing some growing pains with some of those young guys, and inevitably you're going to see growing pains with Ellie. And so there will be a recorrection in his market, and I do believe that it will recorrect in some ways. But I think the people that sell on the high parts is they will go back and they'll be able to buy some other cards with the money that they sell their indies at. So I think the market will recorrect, but I think that money will go into other prospects as they're always trying to look for the next Ellie. So I would definitely put it into some guys like James Wood or Roman Anthony. But what I think happened with Indy is he got called up a little too late to a Pirates system that is not doing very good. I think Ellie's particular, as adverse to Indy, Ellie's numbers, we sold all of Indy in the spring, and because we thought he was going to make a spring turnaround, and he didn't. But then when Ellie came up, he immediately came up to a team that was immediately good, and I think that is specifically what Indy is going to struggle with. Is the Pirates are not good, and he comes up and strikes out seven of his first seven at bats, and it's just a tough way to come into the major leagues when Ellie immediately came in and went crazy. So I wouldn't compare the two apples to apples. I would say we made really good money on Indy earlier this spring, so we could turn it in to other cards, and I think people will make really good money on Ellie De La Cruz as he continues this crazy train and potentially gets the rest of the playoffs. So hope you were able to turn your profits into some more cards as well, and keep following what we're doing, because this is only one of a number of prospects that we love, and we would continue to have you just keep on what we're doing. So thanks, Adam. We love your involvement, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah, so I think Adam basically, Lefty's kind of trying to clarify that he doesn't necessarily think that this is like a real pattern to worry about. It's more of a situational where I think it's safe to say Lefty's saying that Endy's not necessarily, or Ellie's not necessarily overshadowing Endy's call up. It's more of the situation related to Endy's call up is an anomaly, and the situation related to Ellie's call up is an anomaly, and they happen to have happened within like a 6-week span of each other. So how do we avoid this moving forward as flippers? I think there's a couple different things. I like to sell. I always use the term sell immediately upon call up. What I think I need to clarify about that is I think you should sell anytime during the potential call up hype. The ideal peak of value is going to be as they're making their major league debut series, like in their first series that the player's in. That's when the most eyeballs and attention and sort of like the crescendo of the hype. But for a guy like Endy, for example, like I sold all of my LE cards in the spring as well, because I didn't want to risk like a dip in his value if he didn't get called up or if he got injured or whatever. And he started off the year injured. So like I sold him right like before that time. And so it was like, I profited. The risk I took is that it was an L for me because I missed out on like the huge hype, but the huge hype's more of an anomaly. I think, and the lack of hype with Endy, I think, is an anomaly as well. But I think to Lefty's point, he sold all of his Endy stuff early as well. And so to make profit, but avoid the risk of going too low while also avoiding the upside of getting like a ridiculous amount of money in profit, but to always profit, you could sell during the call up ramp up when the player's in the news and there's news about him potentially getting called up. So I think that's kind of a clarification I wanted to make, but great question, Adam. Thank you so much. Up next, last but not least, Paul Schmidt's Buckeye Dill got it in at the final buzzer as well. He said, thanks again for showing my sharing my show and tell submission this week on the podcast. I wanted to follow up and get some feedback on one or two more prospects to add to my inventory of about to submit the PSA. Based on my current budget, I would like to collect 10 different prospects with a minimum of 10 Bowman Chrome first cards of each. So maybe could be a few parallel colored cards sprinkled in. There might be one or two paper. Totally with Buckeye Dill on this one. Paul, like you and I are in lockstep on this. I'm kind of doing a version of the same thing. I'm not going 10 prospects. I'm doing like one or two, but in terms of like mixing in whether or not it's a base chrome, whether or not it's maybe one or two papers, maybe some lunar refractors, some cheaper refractors and things like that. He's got, I'm on pace to finish off the following 8 players in the next few weeks: Spencer Jones, Jackson Churio, Justin Crawford, Zach Geloff, Tyler Soderstrom, James Wood, Colton Cowser, Curtis Mead. With this in mind, what would the experts say my next 2 players should be? I'm sure the answers might vary from Paul to Lefty to Chad, but I would love to hear what you guys suggest. All right, so per usual, I'm going to let my counterparts here at nooffseason.com go first. Let's see what Lefty has to say. Who you should target with the final 2. I see a bunch of his guys are already on here, so it'll be interesting to see how deep Lefty goes here. Lefty, what do you think?
Hey, Paul, great question. I love the list you have so far, especially the guys that we talk about a lot on this is James Wood and Spencer Jones and Jackson Churio are going to be really good turns for this. I also like Justin Crawford and Tyler Soderstrom just making it to the majors, but still it's going to have a lot of publicity over the next couple of years as they move to Vegas. Curtis Mead is a guy that we love a lot as well, and Colton Cowser has a ton of potential. Another guy that I would add to this list, I would take 2 guys here. I would imagine that Chad also adds Roman Anthony. He is outstanding and might be the number 1 prospect in the Red Sox system above Marcelo Meyer over the next couple of years. So I would say Roman Anthony is a guy you have to have in here. It just came out of that 23 set. And then I would also add Junior Caminero in there. Another guy that I might add on a fringe guy is a guy that's a little bit older in the minor leagues, but a guy that's getting a lot of good publicity lately is Colby Mayo. He's fallen out of favor in that Orioles system with all the big names coming over him, but he's still got tons of potential and is probably still going to be a top 50 major league prospect over the next 6 to 12 months. So I that's giving you 3 guys: Roman Anthony, Caminero, and a long shot in Colby Mayo. And then if you really want to get spicy, I would still add some O'Neal Cruz chromes right now before he comes back and see if you can pop some PSA 10s and turn them. So thanks for the submission. Love you being involved in what we're doing here at the Sports Card Strategy and Show and nooffseason.com, and thanks for your question.
Love it from Lefty, throwing back in, getting spicy with the O'Neal Cruz. Love that. All right. Curious to see what Chad has to say. And yeah, definitely great insights from the 2023 Bowman. Don't forget Junior Caminero and Roman Anthony, but see if Chad duplicates Lefty or comes up with something a little bit different. Chad, what do you think?
Hey, Buckeye Dill, thanks for the question. Junior Caminero is an absolute must right now. He's one of the hottest players. He's relatively inexpensive yet. The second one's a little bit more tricky. Jackson Holiday is one that I've been staying away from because he's a little bit pricey, but he's really starting to put on a show at AA, and I think he's the real deal. So you might want to go there if the budget allows. Otherwise, Roman Anthony is a player that both I and Lefty are very high on, and his cards are very reasonable. And Lefty and I are both doing 20-card plays on Roman Anthony. So the answer is Junior Caminero for sure, and then depending upon your budget, Roman Anthony or Jackson Holiday. Thanks, good luck, and keep the questions coming.
Yo, there it is. We have a consensus. We finally have a consensus from Chad and Lefty, and it is Roman Anthony and Junior Caminero. Buckeye Dill, great question. Everybody, thanks so much for submitting some phenomenal questions. We have an amazing community family here at nooffseason.com, and for our premium members, get in as many questions as you can all the time. I think that you're probably noticing that my main focus of the premium membership has become this Overflow Show and the ability for you guys to get as many questions in as you possibly can. The reason is because it's so hard for us to provide blanket level advice on the website that applies to everybody all the time and cover all the different players. We have these principles and values and tried and true methodologies to make profit that we try to put out there, but it is impossible to hit on the hundreds of thousands of players that exist and the hundreds of thousands and millions of parallels and variations and serial numbers and autographs and grades of all their cards. And when you take into account the history of cards as well. So we want the customization for each individual premium member to be the most valuable. And we think that this format of being able to ask as many questions as you want all the time and then get answers weekly to your questions is going to be the most valuable way to help you profit flipping sports cards. And of course, we're going to continue to put out articles and opportunities on the website at all times, cards to buy and what the play should be on each of those cards. So everybody, thank you so much for making nooffseason.com what it is, and appreciate your support. Email me at paul@nooffseason.com anytime, and definitely continue to fill out the form at nooffseason.com to submit your question. The call to action sometimes looks like get personalized advice and build your portfolio. Sometimes it says submit a question. It takes you to the same spot, and that is the definite way that we will answer your questions on the Overflow Show for premium members. Everybody, thanks so much for watching and listening to the Overflow Show. We'll see you all soon. Have a great weekend. I'm Paul Hickey. Talk to you soon.